The panellists we have this week are Louis Trinnaman, who is our marketing expert. We've got Stacey Calder, who is our social media wizard, I think I described it as. We've got Rob Beadle, who does everything with SEO copywriting, and we've got Karen G, who is an amazing networker, both in meeting form and throughout social media. We're going to start with a few questions that we've got already down, and then we'll open it up for people to ask. What I wanted to start with was just asking Louis if you can explain the difference between a marketing plan and a business plan.
Quite a few businesses do sometimes get these confused, but essentially the difference between a business plan and a marketing plan is that a business plan actually talks about what the business is, what it aims to do, and what it would like to do, along with having more information about its key players, so the directors, the people involved in the business, and of course it will have some form of cash flow forecasting. Now, typically a business plan is used to help businesses with obtaining lines of credit, whether that's through loans and other arrangements, overdrafts through banks and so forth. Whereas a marketing plan is different because it actually talks about how you're going to actually market the business and the brand itself, how you're going to build the brand. But more importantly, it will have actual tools within that plan that you can use for your business. So you would actually go into more granular details with regards to what's your objectives for the year, and then you would then build tools around those objectives to help you achieve them. So that's essentially what the two differences are between the two, and that's why you need two separate plans, not use just the one.
Awesome, thanks. I'm sure as we go on with today's panel, we'll see more clear distinctions with what we're talking about and what is actually in a marketing plan. Rob, Louis just mentioned writing a marketing plan. So you're our SEO copywriter. So for many small businesses, writing SEO copy can be a bit overwhelming. How does someone kind of get started with that?
So what I would always suggest to people, particularly small business owners who have got many other things on their plate alongside marketing, is really trying to get use that cliche, the biggest bang for your buck. Being able to do something and plan to do something at the beginning of your marketing plan that's actually going to give you a bit of a kickstart and a bit of a boost to your marketing. Because marketing plans are great, but, and I speak from experience as a writer, that it's easy to get down into the rabbit hole of writing a plan rather than thinking about actually making it real and making it something that's actionable and something you can practically use to improve your business. So the thing I always suggest to people, and it applies particularly for SEO and copy, but can apply for other areas of marketing, is to try and identify your, what I call the big marketing lever. So the thing that you can do, sort of the smallest effort you can put in to have the biggest benefit. So for example, in the website world and with SEO, actually, if you've got a website, then the smallest thing you can actually do to improve it is to actually improve the existing copy, the existing content you've got on your website, because the visitors are already coming to your website. If you can actually persuade more of those visitors to become leads or to become customers, then you'll start to see the biggest benefits from it. So that's what I would suggest in terms of starting, thinking about actually what can have the biggest impact on your business, and then all the other steps that you do beyond that in your marketing plan will add to it and build from there.
And I suppose that when you've got your marketing plan, you start doing that sort of stuff and you get those kind of wins in immediately by leveraging those things that are there. It kind of gives you the courage to kind of continue with where your marketing plan's going.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's as much a mindset thing as it is a marketing thing. I know, speaking as a small business owner myself, that actually seeing some results and seeing some feedback and some things coming back from what you're actually doing, there's nothing like that to give you a bit of motivation, a bit of inspiration to keep it going. So obviously there's many different facets to marketing plans that we're going to talk about today, but bearing in mind when you're starting, and particularly if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by it, think about, well, what's something that I can write my plan, but also I can sort of do, today or tomorrow to actually make that plan start to come to life and start to see the results from it.
Cool. I kind of want to come back to this point and ask Louis a follow-up question, but we'll move quickly on to Stacey's question because I think that follows on nicely as well, and we'll round back to this subject because I think that's interesting. So Stacey, how important is it that social media is included as a part of a marketing plan?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And actually, when I work with a lot of small businesses, a lot of individuals, they almost see it as two separate things. And while social media is a huge part, it should still be part of your marketing plan. So, like the others have suggested, have that marketing plan, know where you're going each month, short-term, long-term goals, all that kind of thing. Your socials should form part of that. So whatever you're doing this month, as Rob says, if you've got great copy on your website, if you've got, you know, blogs and stuff going out, actually that forms a really good part of your social media. I know we've talked before, Louise, about whether you should kind of do it ad hoc or whether you should have a plan. I think you should always have a plan, but be open to dropping in that ad hoc stuff as and when it needs to be.
Brilliant. We'll come to Karen, but I'm just going to quickly pop back to Louis actually. So because you mentioned marketing plans, and basically what I'm hearing kind of from Stacey and Rob is that while you should write your marketing plan, you shouldn't spend all your time on your marketing plan and never actually get to do it. Is that something that is a common theme with people?
Yeah, I mean, so basically, like with a marketing plan, it's an ever evolving document. It's not something that you write up once and you leave it and that's it. It should always be, you should always be adding to it. You should always be adding value to it. And the reason why you're doing that is because you're going to be uncovering things throughout your journey, and you're going to be interacting with people that are going to help you in your business, and you're going to learn new things, and then you're going to pick up new skills. And of course, our objectives change. So yeah, as Rob has already said at the beginning, that, you know, you should have actual objectives in there. And part of the thing with the marketing plan is that you should have really what are like the 5 key things or 3 key things that you want to achieve this year, and then break those down into minimal like tasks that will allow you to get to that point. So if it's a case of like you want to sign up 100 clients this year, so what's going to be the underlying actions you're going to need to do to achieve 100 client signups this year? That's what's going to change. Now what will eventually happen is you'll come into blockers and challenges, and then that's where the marketing plan can help you, because you'll have tools in there that will help you, such as customer personas, objection handling, and things like that. And these are the things that will change and adapt as you move on. So you don't spend all your time writing it. You actually do need to go away and do it.
Awesome, because it's the same with kind of most content creation anyway. It's never going to be perfect. It's better getting it out there than sitting on it and hoping that it's going to be perfect at some point before you actually action it, because you'll never get anywhere. But another part of marketing and how you market yourselves, obviously, as we all know from today, is networking. So I'm going to ask Karen, what is effective networking?
Sorry, I was on mute. Right. So, I mean, networking effectively is visualized by the contacts that people make to you. So if you're networking, but people are not reaching out continually to you, and it is also on social media, it is also on face-to-face. So it is on like LinkedIn, different places that we meet. So really, you only know it's effective by your results. And it doesn't necessarily mean sales, but it means contacts, and it can be done anyway. So just to give you an example, I was in Spain over Christmas. I put some posts on. I didn't realize they were sharing to the Dodger Dog page, but then this dog owner who's crazy about dogs contacted me about my hotel and asked me loads of questions. And then I went back to him and answered his questions and told him, actually, if you are looking to book, Jet2's got some good offers. And then he came back to me and he said, you know, thank you, I got a great deal. And then he said, and I noticed, you know, your books, and I bought one. So I was like, okay, so it can be any way. It's about not the journey, it's the result. It's not like a hard sale thing, and you have to have lots of people in your sales funnel that you network with. So effective networking is about who reaches back and comes to you from that interaction, really, whether it be face-to-face or online.
Awesome, thanks. So I forgot to kind of mention at the beginning, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we will keep an eye out for them there. But just opening it up to the floor now, did anybody actually have any questions to ask based on what we've talked about so far?
Can I ask the question? Because Karen,
oh yeah,
Karen mentioned about networking, but sometimes you don't see the result of networking immediately because it's a long game. For instance, you need to attend regularly, and also you got to do the presentations like 4 sites to build out the relationships. So in the marketing plan, should we say that, for instance, my goal is to get 10 clients in a year or something? What do you think?
What, from networking, you mean?
Yeah.
I would say that you don't need to say 10 clients. In the beginning, when you first start, you need to go by reactions, interactions, and then as you grow that bank of people, then it's going to bring the clients. So if you've been networking for years but you've never connected with everybody on LinkedIn, for example, and you've not followed up with people, you might blame whatever networking you've been doing, but it would actually be like your sort of behaviors and your reactions and the way you network. And it kind of leads in very nicely to Mike's question, which is in the chat about preparation. You don't really need to prepare to go networking as long as you know that that's the time and that's there. Right? Don't be late. Don't be not turning up. Don't keep everybody waiting. Have a very good pitch if it's necessary. Reach out, put your details. I mean, LinkedIn is, you know, the greatest way that I know of connecting with people, but don't just connect. Go away afterwards and say, it was great to meet you. Loved your shirt, Mike, you know, or something. Make it very friendly and personal and keep in touch with people. Don't go back and say, like, I'm a coach and, you know, I can help you. Let me know and we can whatever, and then keep going back to people, chasing them, things like that. So be friendly, but be honest, reliable, be timely, be what the person that, you know, you want them to want to work with, I would say.
Can we kind of take, I see there's another question from Nigel, but before that, let's swing that question across to Stacey as our social media expert and ask, when it comes to kind of the offshoot of networking, where do you feel that is best placed on social media for that kind of, that follow-up, or do you have any processes that you suggest to the people you work with?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Karen said there. It's definitely about, you know, building that community. That's what I talk about when I talk about social media. Is it's not all about getting likes and follow. It is about building that community. I talk a lot about it not being a one-way street, but a two-way street, having those conversations. Now, I'm not saying you should be jumping into people's LinkedIn inboxes saying, does pineapple belong on a pizza, for instance? I get a lot of that recently. I don't know who's coaching it, but it drives me mad. So don't ask about pizza unless you are a pizza company, of course. But yeah, I agree. It is. I loved what you said. I actually wrote it down, Karen, about it's not the network's responsibility to follow up. It's absolutely yours. Find a way that sits right with you guys and just have that conversation, because that's all you're doing is you're building your reputation by having good conversations. You know, I always tend to try and fit in half an hour after a networking meeting where you can go and connect and join up. So that's quite a good structure. If you block it out in your diary, it tends to happen. Whereas if you think, oh God, I haven't done that meeting, like you said earlier, Lou, I need to go and find that form. Who is it? Oh, well, I remember Mike because he had a shirt on, but I don't remember, you know, someone else. So it's really, you know, go and do it now.
Brilliant advice. And I think that something a lot of companies, I can say myself, are guilty about is not following up well enough after a networking meeting. And of course you can take that offline kind of this sort of environment online with the social media channels. Louis, how much, let's go to Nigel's question, and then I'm interviewing everybody, I get to ask the question. So what panel Nigel's asked, what do the panel think are the most important things to measure? Do you want to expand on that at all, Nigel?
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit, because I think you can get a bit obsessed on followers, you can get obsessed on likes and shares and comments and social and stuff like that. But obviously there's stuff that's important beyond just social media. So I just wondered, maybe one answer from each of the panel members, if that's too easy to do, just what they would measure as or see as most important.
Should we start with Louis as our marketing expert?
I'd say I would like that would be an answer, a much broader answer, to be honest with you, because if I'm looking at the marketing plan as a whole, as I said, you need to have those objectives that you want to achieve as a first off. Then you definitely need to build in a measurement to ascertain whether or not you've achieved that or not. Now, sometimes the goal might be very, very simple in terms of it might be to have X amount of people sign up, or it might be that you want to have X amount of growth in certain areas or whatever. But you need to come up with a measurement. So my top tip would really be is to focus on what the objective is how you're going to achieve it, and what does success look like, to you, because everyone's definition of success is different. And then when you know the answers to those three things, then you can build your measurement, your metric measurement around that. Basically, that would be the way that I would answer it. But obviously, as the marketing plan guy, I would say that you need to have it for every objective that you put in, whether that's 1 objective, 3 objectives, 5 objectives. You need to have measurements for all of them. But in order to write how that would look, those are the 3 things that you should ask yourself.
Awesome. Rob, on the same question, when it comes to kind of, because I think SEO is such a big buzzword and nobody really knows what it means, and I think a lot of it comes down to obviously copy and things like that. So how would you answer Nigel's question there?
Yeah, so measurement is obviously is really important. One of the things that I use for my own business, and I'd always recommend people to use in terms of measurement, is some of the sort of existing tools, free tools that are out there. Things like Google Analytics, Google Search Console. And so particularly from an SEO point of view, if you're looking to measure, whether it's visitors to your site or which pages people land on or what keywords people use to find your pages, then those tools are absolutely essential for that, and you don't have to pay a penny for them. So I definitely use those tools to measure things like your visitors and the keywords that actually attract people onto your site from an SEO point of view. The other thing, taking a slightly broader sort of marketing look at things, the single most important spreadsheet that I have in my business is what I call my client tracker spreadsheet. And essentially what I use that for is to measure and to track every lead, every prospect, every client that I work with. And most importantly, not just who they are and what the project was, but how did they find me? Was it through SEO? Was it through a directory I belonged to? Was it because I met them at a marketing networking meeting? Was it from a social media post? And it was something that someone recommended to me early on. And it's very simple. I'm happy to send anybody a template if they want, but it is literally just an Excel sheet with, I don't know, half a dozen columns on there. But when I look back every few months and see the sort of pattern of where my leads come from, my clients come from, it's really telling as to helping me to understand what is working with my marketing. Is it the SEO that's working? Is it social media? Is it networking? And then if I've been working on an area, I can see, is it working? Or if I need to work on an area a bit more, again, it gives me some indications on that too.
Brilliant. I think that's a great answer. It fits so perfectly with what Lou was saying, that, you've got to kind of do these things, measure them to be able to see what's successful in the first place, and keep rolling and going back and amending the business plan or the marketing plan as and when you kind of see these measurements coming in. So Stacey, let's get your answer to Nigel's question as well, and then we'll go to
I absolutely agree with what Louis and Rob were saying. And in terms of social media and things like that, I tend to track 2 figures, or whatever you want to call it. So the first one is the action. So it might be that it might be networking, it might be the time that you spend on Facebook, it might be how many posts you post into a group. Whatever that action is, you track it. And then obviously the results. So there's always kind of 2 numbers that you're tracking on any one thing, because if you're putting 6 hours a day into Facebook and you're getting no results, then it kind of asks the question as to, well, why are you not getting the results when you're spending that much time on a thing? Think about it a bit like what do we all know? Trying to lose weight or getting fit. You track your action, so what you're eating, how many steps you're doing, that kind of thing. We all get a bit obsessed with the Fitbits, don't we? And actually then you're also tracking the results as well, so that you can see if you have a hiccup, it's possibly down to whatever, and you can find it. That's the thing, is when something goes wrong, it makes it much easier to find the kind of the probable cause of that. So yeah, going back to what Rob and Louis were saying, absolutely agree.
Great. And Karen, what most important thing to measure from your kind of networking?
I think that the most important thing to measure is your interaction. So if we're talking face to face, then is there people here that you've never met before? So make sure that you connect with the new people, but also the people that you've known for a long time. Use it as a catch up, contact them, even go send them a message on LinkedIn or wherever it is you choose to keep that relationship going. So use every interaction as a prompt to just sort of rubber stamp that relationship. Yeah, it's also a good thing, especially if I like LinkedIn, because I'm not good at lots of pro formas. I just might have a good intention, but then I'll kind of just won't do it anymore. Whereas LinkedIn is always there and the information just stays there all the time. So I would say when you do message someone, if I message Mark, who I've known for many years, and I say, it's really lovely to see you, I haven't seen you for a while, I know that. But if it's someone who maybe I haven't seen for a while, but I know that I see that I'm already a friend, make sure that the first time when you connect with people, you put where you met them, because it's like a very easy little cheat for 3 years later to remember that you met at 4N, or you met at BNI, or you met at some random place or wherever it was, so that you're always being showing, you know, that you're interested in the person and that you remember the person. So when you do connect with everybody that's new, when you send them a message, just put, it was great to see you at, or, you know, and then always it will remain. You'll scroll back and you'll, because I do sometimes, I think, did I meet that person there? And then I scroll back and I see that I did. So I suppose the things you should track as well is the little reminders that it's someone's birthday, it's someone's work anniversary. Use those as little prompts as well, because like your whole network's not going to have a work anniversary on the same day. So if you just keep a, you know, half an hour free a day, really, you can just clear up these little jobs, but keep the relationships that are there on the boil. So I suppose, yeah, it's your follow up, the fortunes in the follow up. But be smart about it, and then it's less time consuming or onerous, and you're less likely to give it up.
Kind of, I guess the answer to Nigel's question as a summary is that you measure the things that you decide in your marketing plan you want to achieve, and your marketing plan should tell you how, not only how to measure those, but when you'll have actually achieved them. We've got a question from Sharon. Sharon, do you want to ask your question?
So this is really for Stacey and obviously the rest of the panel. Facebook group or Facebook page for a business page?
I do love a group. That is actually where my kind of speciality lies, is in that building a community. But you need pages as well, because obviously pages are where you run your ads from and things like that. So the way I see it is your business page is like, we talked about this earlier, it's like a billboard on a one-way street. That is you getting your message out there to whoever comes across it. The key is to get people to come across it. So whether that's through paid ads or having something like a group where you can build up your community. So a group, if we're talking about one-way streets and billboards, your group is your two-way street. It's that going out and walking to the shop and meeting someone and having that conversation. So you can use both hand in hand. So, you know, to get people into your group where you can nurture those conversations and that relationship building, you can get people in through your page. So link the two.
That's quite smart. I need to look at that one. I've got a Facebook page, but I haven't done a Facebook group yet. So I think that's got to be.
What would your audience want from a group from you? So it might be, you know, some of the best groups are, you know, based around hobbies or things like that. So my group is about growing the person to grow their business, and like little top tips and top tips and things like that. So lots of business owners want that content, so they will join, they'll find it out and they'll join. But, you know, think about your specialities, think about things that people are struggling with, that they might want access to you and your team. And that's a really good start for a group there.
Which is really good. I did a course. So for those that know me, I'm a huge fan of Profit First, which is a book by a guy called Mike Michalowicz. And he's just written a new book, which is more on marketing. And I did the beta version of the course with him. And basically what he says is your marketing is an experiment, and each bit you do, evaluate it. So say what your who, what, when is, then work on your cost, then work on how many people you need to speak to, when do you consider this a success? And if you don't consider it a success, you put that experiment aside and you start another one. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I would always say don't fish in one pool. I'm not the sort of social media manager though that says to people you should be on, you know, all 4 of the main platforms every day doing it well. I'm the sort of person that's quite realistic, and if you can do 2 really well rather than 4 pretty shit, then you're winning.
And of course, groups on LinkedIn and Facebook can be run by multiple businesses. So there is the advantage that, I mean, I've run groups. I know how challenging it can be to keep up with the constant post approval and things like that. So being able to kind of share the responsibility of a group is potentially one way of.
That's a good idea.
Especially if you've got like-minded businesses. So just a quick shout out there at the top of that Google sheet, which I'll share the link to again shortly, is the Big Free Marketing Meeting Facebook group, which is run by Mona, myself and Louis, to kind of help continue the support of small businesses outside of this meeting. So did we have any other questions for the panel? I can see we haven't got any more in the chat.
Mike.
Yeah. How far in advance should we be planning?
So I would normally recommend that if you make a plan, it's for the year, whether that's calendar year or business trade year. But you should obviously be building on it throughout, and then you should then have a point to review the plan at the end of that period, and then start a new one again, basically. It doesn't necessarily have to be a whole brand new plan. It could be then just like a new add-on, which will be right for 2021. This is what we wanted, and then in 2022, this is what we want to now achieve. And then you basically allow it to evolve like that. But in terms of reviewing the plan, that's really up to you as the business. The way I approach it with my clients is we ordinarily would review things either weekly, fortnightly, depending on what actions they're going to go away and do in order to achieve. And then we would then touch back on it, see how they've got on. If they've achieved it, great. If they haven't achieved it, then we see how we can then overcome it and then achieve it again, and so on. And you just move it through. So there should always be a planning, a reviewing, and then cycle anew, basically.
Can I just sort of, I believe that it's a yearly should be your goals. So you should set your yearly goals. And I use a plan as a 30, 60, 90 day rolling, so that you know what objectives you want to achieve in the long term, but your plan should be ever evolving. It should be a 30, 60, 90 day. So you do what you want in the first month, and then when you've achieved it, you move on to the 60 days, and you add on things to the 90 days, and it just evolves throughout the year. So I believe that, yeah, you set your goals for the year, but your actual working plan that you're going to get out and look at every day and every week, and you're just going to constantly focus on with your actions, that to me is a 30, 60, 90 day plan that as you move it forward, you add on to the 90, and then you move it forward and you add on. And then things that get left over, you just put them back onto the 30 for the following month. And if you don't do it after 3 months, then cross that off.
So if people here don't have a marketing plan at all, it's something they've never thought about, they've got their business plan all sorted, but their marketing has just been kind of, oh, I'll write a blog today, and they haven't got any plan behind it. Should they start by figuring out their goals that they want to achieve in a year's time and then filling them out with smaller steps, or should they start with smaller steps and build up to what that yearly goal is? What would be the best way to do it?
Well, your goal is a separate thing to your plan, really. Your goal is why you're making the plan. So, you know, you're right what you want to achieve, but then to me, your plan is how you're going to achieve it. So your eye is on the ball, your eye is on the end of the journey, but you're going to be taking steps on your plan to achieve what is going to be your end result. So it's kind of two things. So for me, a plan does start with an idea. Any good thing starts with an idea, but you're going to make a list of what your goals, what you want to achieve. You know, it can be not that I ever could, you know, get involved with people who buy stuff, but it might be followers or likes or interactions or sales. It can be lots of different things, yeah. But that is going to be your goals, your marketing goals, and they should be annotated on like a thing so that you can really look at it and see where you are. But for me, the actual daily actions, the weekly actions, the things that you're going to do to achieve that, I believe that you get the best results from having a rolling 30, 60, 90-day plan that each month it moves forward. So in February, if you had one now, everything that was in the 60s is going to become 30 and everything that was in the 90s is going to become 60. And you're going to write new actions for the 90 days and then following month. So within 3 months, you will have achieved the objectives that you set yourself, in the first 3 months.
And just to add to that, because you mentioned there, Lou, if you're the kind of person who's just, I'm going to do a blog today, but you've never written it down, it's a bit like the old shopping list. Okay, so the reason why we're going on and on about writing this all down, right? If you ever done your weekly shop, when you write down what you need in your weekly shop, you'll go out and you'll buy everything on that list, yeah, and then you might add a couple of things that you want on there. If you go into the shop without a list, guarantee you will forget something, and the thing that you'll forget is the thing that you need, i.e. black bin sacks. Yeah, it's not until you run out of black bin sacks that you realize, oh no, I forgot to pick them up. Why did I do that? Because I didn't write it down. And it's no different. Yeah, we always do the things that we want to write a blog, but we don't do the things we need, which is respond to the posts on our Facebook, yeah, or touch base with people. Yeah, that's why we need to write things down, and we need that accountability. And if there's one word that you want to definitely highlight from today's and what a marketing plan will help you, is it helps you be accountable for your actions and you achieving your goals.
I think that's a really nice analogy there. Thanks, Louis. That also makes a very good soundbite. I do have another question for Rob, actually, because we've talked about social media, and we've talked about networking, and we've talked about actual marketing plans here, and all of those things have one thing in common, is that they usually require you to write something down. So when you're going networking and you've got to write your 60 seconds, or you've got to share it in the chat, or when you're on social media and you're doing social media updates, how important is it that that is SEO compliant? Kind of how much thought do you put behind that?
Well, from an SEO point of view, I know SEO sounds like some complicated wizardy stuff, and there is some technical bits I don't get involved in, but from a content and a copy point of view, essentially the way that search engines work is they use artificial intelligence to try and mimic what real people are looking for, what people are interested in. So if you write in the same way that you would do to engage an audience of real people like we've got here today, that will actually tick a lot of the boxes for SEO. And what do I mean by that? Well, things like it's original, it's interesting, it's engaging, it talks about the sort of things that your audience want to read about or want to hear about. So there isn't really a great secret behind it. It's more about thinking about who are you writing for, whether you're writing a social media post update, or whether you're writing a 40-second, 50, 60-second introduction pitch. The starting point really is thinking about who is the person that's going to be hearing that, who's the person that's going to be reading it, and what matters to them, what are they interested in, what problems have they got, what questions they want to answer. If you start off with that as your what am I going to write about, then actually that will give you 90% of what you need, and you don't need to get involved in thinking about keywords or anything complicated like that for SEO. Just think about write things that actually people want to read, things that are interesting, engaging, and that talk about the topics that the people want to hear about too. One thing to bear in mind, and I like Karen's approach of having the goals and then the more immediate term sort of tasks and actions that you take, is just to think about how long some things take to come to fruition, and for that input, that action that Stacey talked about, how long the action takes to turn into a result. One of the things with publishing content and copy on your website is that it isn't necessarily going to be instant in terms of seeing a response. So if you do publish a blog post, or you add some new pages to your website, not necessarily going to see a result overnight. It might take some time for the search engines to find it and people to be on your page and things like that. So bear that in mind when you're making your plans and when you're measuring your results, that you might do something within this 30 days, but you might not see the results until the next 30 days or next 60 or 90 days for something that you actually did back in the past.
And I guess this is the point of the marketing plan, essentially, is to tell you when to expect results and be able to measure those things. Just a quick round off there with Louis, based on kind of what Rob has said, is it fair to say that you need to treat each of your kind of marketing activities, whether it's networking, social media, or your SEO, as kind of its own separate beast, as you will, that requires its own different type of measuring and goal setting?
Every activity that you should do is its own activity in itself, and there should obviously be a measurement for it. There are sometimes there's crossovers and things like that, but it's always important to keep your pulse on your fingers on each of the pulses, as it were, basically, because you are going to be spinning plates every now and again. But if you focus in on particular actions and particular tasks, it's about pairing tasks together so that you can be more effective at doing things, so it doesn't feel like you're constantly juggling all of the time. So make sure that you have clear objectives, clear goals that you want to achieve, and what are the tasks that you can do to undertake those, and then going into those, what are you looking to get out from them, and then that's half of the battle done. It's then just a case of you going out and doing it.
I suppose this is why it's important to listen to experts and how long they say these things take, because speaking from experience with video, I know how long it can take for a video to pick up traction online or to see the results from it. And I think a lot of people kind of give up too soon on some things, but then also hang on too clingily to things that are definitely not working too long. But I'm going to round down this panel now.